And you're very welcome to the Racing Room with AK Bets after a fine win for Rafe Beckett's Blue Stocking in the Prix de l'Arc Triomphe at Longchamp yesterday. Yes, my friends, after watching Ross O'Ryan deliver the perfect ride on the biggest stage, it was just another stark reminder that Keir Jarabshin and Amma Racing haven't the foggiest clue what they're doing. Delighted to be joined as always by Tony Calvin, by Anthony AK Bets Kaminskas, and Mr. Harry, I got a new haircut, Stuart Moore. Look at you, you big ride.
Thanks very much. I know. No, I saw myself last week and thought, I'm pretending to be a lawyer. I better do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I could go for this Harry, this new and improved 2.0. Good stuff. How was your weekend trading wise, AK? Before we get into it, did you do much on the arc itself around Longchamp, or how did you go?
Yeah, really, really good. It's probably been our best weekend in a long time, to be honest with you.
Hey, bonuses for the three of us, lads. Bonuses for the three of us. Go on, yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw the 100-to-1 shot win the opener on Sunday, I thought we were going to get the hard luck kind of like text going through saying, "You never guess someone had 25."
No, I can't even. I can't dress that one up to a hard luck story, I'm afraid. No, it was for results wise, you couldn't have picked better results. Especially on the Sunday. You talk horse racing, talk football, Premier League football. There was lots of draws, lots of unders. What else? There's a few shocks in the NFL. Like we bet basically the Longchamp card. We bet Premier League football and all the NFL games. I think it was 10 NFL games yesterday. It might have been 11 if you count the one that was in the early hours, or the 1 or 2, whatever it is, 1. And just results just fell our way. Basically, lots of decent turnover. We decided to bet all those events just like super hard, best price, absolutely everything, just absolutely lights out. And we got the results. We touched lucky. It could have gone, if results would have been the other way, we would have done our absolute stones because we went crazy prices essentially. But we got the lot.
Or if you start laying, winning customers proper prices on dogs, AK, you might actually, you know what I mean? This graceful decision. Not to lay these sharp punters.
More on that later.
I was just thinking that Harry's new haircut reminds me of the kind of like slick blogger look. There was some great content from the blogger on Sunday.
You're trying to piss me off on a Monday morning already, TC. Do you want me to just end the show now, do you?
I immediately thought of you when he was going around with the Arc de Triomphe kind of like trophy. And I just
tell you what I know. I tell you what, it's a big trophy. I still reckon I could fit that up his, you know what. I could make it fit. Let's leave it there, shall we? AK, before we get into the racing view, is the way to split, and we've been talking about this the last couple of weeks, to split horse racing and those online slots in the eyes of the regulators to tax the slot games, and will this go down well with everybody involved?
You know my opinion on this. We know the profits that are made out of slots industry wide in the UK and Ireland. What I would say the other side of that equation, as I've always said, is the demand is there. There's a lot of demand there. I think you start taxing. I think taxation is grand, and a lot of politicians raise taxes, increase tax yield. But I'm always just interested on how it affects the ecosystem. I particularly took umbrage with the horse racing bettors forum statement. Basically, I can't remember the exact words about the gambling industry. The gambling industry, I think it was holding people hostage or something like that. It's just
holding horse racing hostage.
Holding horse racing hostage. It bears absolutely no semblance to reality from what I can see. It's just inconceivable that if your business is being squeezed at one side, you don't cut costs on stuff that isn't performing on the other side of the equation. Horse racing sponsorship, I alluded to the point that we were looking at a big sponsorship in horse racing, fairly big for us. It's not lights out, it's not gonna make any difference to the game overall, but for us it would have been big. And we just had to knock it on the head basically with just the way the wind is blowing. So when people are talking about bookmakers potentially reducing sponsorship, there's also a hidden underbelly there of sponsorship that people are considering that you never, if I wasn't talking about our example, for example, wouldn't see the light of day as well. So there's plenty of knock-on effects on this. And I just definitely take issue with the fact that bookmakers cutting their cloth when taxes are absolutely jacked through the roof to stay viable is a bad thing. how do you ring fence horse racing? It's essentially an underperforming product for the amount it costs to show it online, essentially. And that unless that dynamic changes, I don't think that dynamic is the fault of bookmakers.
Yeah. Okay.
But
well, look,
just on that, sorry,
on.
Hugh, just on that, AK. I mean, isn't that? I'm not actually sure the Horse Racing Bettors Forum are proposing higher taxation. If you read their thing, but even if you do, isn't that the idea of raising taxes on slots? Is to make horse race or sports punting comparatively more competitive?
Yeah, comparatively, like from there's I suppose there's the inbuilt margin of slots, and like I say, people like playing them. You can look at like the RTP rates on different games and things like that, and the people who play slots do. Horse racing it's just a very it doesn't bring people through the door anymore. Like it's not from an acquisition point of view, whether we like it or whether we don't, there are other things that bring people through the door. Horse racing is a declining product. The quality is declining. What are you ring fencing? Like honestly, I don't get it. It's unbelievably expensive to show. Like I think we did our numbers, and it probably more relevant speaking and getting quotes of bigger operators in this, because I realize how insignificant we are in the overall pie. But you're talking 6.5, 7p to take a bet on horse racing. It can be worse in Ireland with turnover tax, and we're talking about laying break-even customers on minimum bet. Like something has to break in that scenario. It's not an all-you-can-eat buffet where everyone can have everything they like. Something's going to really break soon, in my opinion.
Look, it was a very positive weekend, I think, for racing overall. TC, it wasn't perfect, which we'll come to a little bit later on. But we got to talk about the Arc and Blue Stocking. She was supplemented, Tony, I think at £120,000 or thereabouts, so six figures. It wasn't cheap to get her in there. Obviously, Connections felt she had a huge chance, and it was a brilliant ride and a brilliant performance.
Yeah, you've got to remember that Blue Stocking was actually winless in 2023.
Yeah.
And she had a bit of a reputation as a bit of a twicer. I mean, I had a look this morning, and she got beat at fives on or short 3 times in running. So she didn't have a great record coming into this season, but fair play to Rafe Beckett. He's done brilliantly with her this season. 2 defeats came on unfavoured fast ground against 2 horses that didn't turn up on Saturday. One, Goliath, who's a gelding, wasn't allowed to, and the other, City of Troy. So yeah, he's done remarkably well to turn a filly around who had in some punters' mind, a questionable attitude. So yeah, and she won pretty cosily as well, like gallingly for me because I was on the second, but she won only just over a length, but it was quite a dominant performance.
And a brilliant ride from Ross Ryan as well. He was fantastic on her. Look, I know the Racing Post wanted to convince us that this was one of the greatest arcs of all time. Superstar field, even though it was an absolute donkey derby, horrible field in comparison to what's gone before. Geldings in the Arc, TC, where do you stand on this briefly? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think they should be allowed in. There's a lot of nonsense saying, all these races are for the good of the breed, but you want the best against the best. I'm not going down the Cheltenham argument again, but yeah, you'd want, there was quite a few in there. You could have had Rebels Romance in there. You could have had Goliath. You could have had Calandagan.
Calandagan, yeah.
Have been vying for favouritism.
Yeah.
So yeah, just do away with the nonsense and get them in there.
Yeah, okay. Our old pal, Mr. Schumark, had a good win on Friendly Soul in the Prix de l'Opera there. What did you make of that? And also Maracova, we mentioned the 100-to-1 shot. I mean, look, the Abbe, I've nearly given up hope on Bedtime Story now. Well, maybe the ride that Ryan Moore gave her wasn't great. But anyway, go ahead.
There was a few, I think in the Arc, you had to be up with the pace. I think one of the 2 of the outsiders finished 5th and 6th from off the pace, but you had to be there. For Sparkling Plenty was given a very poor ride in the Opera, which Friendly Soul won. Friendly Soul, that was a really much needed winner for the Gosdens and Kieran Schumacher in particular. So he had the 1-2 in that. What else did we have? We had Makarova winning the Abai. We had Ramatuel, which was a kick in the teeth for everyone who backed that in the Guinness. It showed you how good a horse she was when she won the Group 1 in devastating style later on in the card. What else do we have? We had that's about it. Oh, one thing I'll just say, Aidan O'Brien had 5 winners over the weekend. Godolphin didn't even have a runner.
Yeah, it's grim, but it's looking grim, isn't it, when you look at it?
We've touched upon that before, and obviously they had a good recent winner at Newmarket. But I had a look. The last 9 runners Godolphin have been in America and Japan, and not even in Europe. So that's another worrying sign for Godolphin. And one thing off the track we should mention is there were 26,000 racegoers at the Arc on Sunday last year. This year was only 22,300. So that's a big shortfall. We've touched upon our declining attendance figures at Ascot, York, Cheltenham, etc.
Yeah.
It seems France has got a problem as well.
Wow. And what about the amount of non-runners, TC, because of ground-related problems and all sorts of weather mishaps that weren't weather mishaps? I know this is one of your bugbears. Was it a particularly bad weekend?
Well, it was actually highlighted the strength of the regulators in the UK and France. I mean, we had on Saturday, it was a ludicrous situation where a confirmed mudlark, Hamish, was pulled out officially on soft, heavy in places at Ascot on Saturday, and that race was marred by a big drift on LRZ and a ride that incurred the attention of the stewards. But we won't go into that here. LRZ did play up beforehand, so that might have been a factor in the drift. But so Hamish allowed to be pulled out on his preferred ground, which is obviously farcical. But when Fantastic Moon tried to be pulled out of the Arc on Sunday, the French stewards pulled them in. Actually, the owners actually flagged this on social media before they actually told the stewards. I think they took great umbrage at that. The French stewards, they said, no, you can't. If you pull out, you're going to get a £55,000 fine. And we're also going to make sure you run on your merits, even if you do run. So that shows you the strength of the French stewards as opposed to the UK. I thought that was a stark highlight, what happened with Hamish on the Saturday and what happened to Fantastic Moon. They just think, right, you're here. We don't think you've got a good excuse not to run. But if you don't run, €55,000 fine for pulling out this late. And Fantastic Moon did have form on soft ground, finished second in a Group 1 on soft ground beforehand. So yeah, the French stewards just put their foot down and the owners just say, we're going to have to run.
We love the French here. Harry, have you ever been to the Arc?
Yes, I have a few times.
Have you? Yeah, I can see you sitting there with your roast pheasant, your glass of nice Malbec or French.
Malbec, that well-known French wine.
You go for the old Cabernet Sauvignon. So, I can see you there. I've never been. It's on the bucket list, but
it's very good fun.
Yeah.
Did you think that was extraordinary though, Harry? That they threatened them with a €55,000 fine if the horse didn't run?
I think it was brilliant in many ways because they realised the value of the importance of the race to racing, and that if you sign up, punters turn up, people have bet on it. It's an important the horses that register for the race are entered in the race are an important feature of it. Someone put up an interesting question yesterday on Twitter, I think after your media blackout, which was what would have happened if was the horse something Moon? I can't remember what it's called. Full Moon was injured, and it's an interesting question because of course everyone would be feeling awful, but actually I just think that unless you're withdrawing the horse on safety grounds, the regulators can't be held to ransom by connections going, oh, the horse really won't like this. It's a welfare issue. So I think broadly, fair play to France Gallo on that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The owner wasn't stuck in traffic, was he, or something like that?
Yeah. That quintessentially French meal of a glass of Malbec and a bucket of fried chicken. Right, Grand National changes. Guys, let's talk about this briefly. I want to read you the first paragraph here of the aforementioned article that TC sent to us. British racing has been told it needs to maintain the Grand National's acceptability to society and that the sport must continue to evolve to remain sustainable. I'll go back to what we have said numerous times on this short-lived podcast, that racing needs to stop apologizing to these people that will never be appeased. And who are the people in society that currently object to the Grand National in its current form? Tony, if you want to take this, you can. Harry, either. I just find this remarkable that racing continues to put itself in the naughty chair when nobody is really asking you to do anything. It's ridiculous.
I'll just briefly chime in. I think the others might have a more strident view on this. I just thought Nevin Truesdale's the outgoing CEO of the Jockey Club, and he made these comments in the Racing Foundation lunch at Ascot last Wednesday. And some of it was pretty staggering, to be honest with you. He came out with a line that they've seen polls about the worsening public perception of the Grand National. Over half viewed the race as cruel or fairly cruel. Now, the devil is always in the detail when you get the question whether it's loaded or not. But and he just hinted at kind of like, there's more changes to come, and it gets to the stage where people are saying just what the hell's going on? You've already reduced the race to 40 to 34. You've obviously reduced the height of the fences, the run to the first fence,
substance of the fences. The whole race has changed unrecognizably.
I don't think we can be blind to the fact that probably changes. We don't want to go back to the 6 foot drop days, but a lot of people just think enough's enough already. But when they hear this coming from the Jockey Club chief executive, they just think, is the race going to be worth it? Is it just going to be another glorified national hunt chase now?
These are racing people, Harry. These are racing people making these changes. Like, it's ridiculous.
I was pretty amazed by the reaction to the last Grand National, which particularly on social media, there were a few people kind of going, oh, well, it's probably necessary, but it's a bit sad. And there was a sort of Puritanism had crept into racing, where people were then basically getting strips torn off them for having said they preferred the Grand National when they were children, but understood the difference. I think it's, I think bluntly, the Jockey Club have done very well in the battle against Animal Rising, but it's hard to see this other than the last running of the Grand National as something of victory for Animal Rising. But I think the real thing that racing needs to address is, what does it actually mean by welfare? That it needs to have an almost philosophical conversation with itself about the protection of the thoroughbred, because the Grand National is a really important brand for racing, and it's one of the big connections. Nevin Truesdale referred to it as a sort of, one of the jewels in the crown of British sport. I'm not sure it does qualify for that status anymore, but one of the most important things for racing is keeping money in it. That maintains the welfare of the animals that are being raced. If you take a micro look at welfare all the time and just think, well, actually, we've got to make sure horses aren't injured in this particular race and do everything to stop horses being injured in this particular race, you start to risk losing support on a macro level. And a macro level is ultimately what keeps thoroughbreds as a breed going and well looked after, generally speaking, well looked after by horse racing. It is not just a good thing that the Grand National has been changed in this way, because it is going to make it less popular. There's no getting around the fact that is going to become less popular. Fewer people are going to watch it. There's going to be fewer money. There's going to be less money in racing. We can't just keep looking at welfare as, oh, no horses fell in the Grand National. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah. Well, that's a mixed bag. And also, by the way, if you're a horse and you were in court against the BHA and they said, oh, we were so pleased that none of you fell during that race, I think the first question I'd ask in cross-examination is, why did you put up all those fences in front of me if you didn't want me to fall?
Let's have a flat race.
It was absolutely bizarre.
I was wondering where that story was going there. If I was a horse,
I was amazed by the amount of people that were going, wasn't it fantastic that no horses fell? And unfortunately, the reality of this sport is it is not purely about welfare in the sense that you just always must do absolutely everything to stop a horse being injured, because if it were, we'd just be leading horses around on ropes. And
by the way, if the horse falls, the jockey falls too, right?
Oh yeah. Jockeys are always a second consideration, if that, in these things. But ultimately, if this stops being an entertaining sport, what happens to the thoroughbred racehorse?
AK, one of my favorite bets every year around Grand National, and I don't do it anymore, I haven't done it for years, was, will all the horses make it over the first fence? Like, I just literally go down the year and we'd all go in and back it, yes or no. Yeah. And like, honestly, the roar after the first fence, if they all got over or didn't get over, depending on what you'd bet, was one of my favorite
No, I'm the exact same. You've been in no doubt unsurprised by that. But yeah, it's just another race. It's just another relatively mundane race now. It's still not that competitive, and it's no crack essentially. Like it used to be the spectacle. People used to talk about it. I don't know if it's because of my tipping record, but my nan doesn't even ring me anymore asking me what she should be backing, to be honest with you, because just the interest has waned, I think, of pretty much across every generation. Like it used to be, I'm from a family that just literally won't play the lotto. They won't do anything. Like they're very, very risk averse. But Grand National Day used to be something that we used to watch, or if you were at a football game at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, people would be listening to it and stuff like that. Doesn't happen anymore.
It might.
Were you adopted, AK? Were you adopted?
I sometimes think so, mate. To be honest, yeah.
Sorry, Hugh. Just to finish off on this, listen. I think I agree with Tony that the changes probably did have to be made, or a lot of them. But my objection is the way that we're looking at this is purely a good thing for horse racing, because it presents a lot of challenges.
As much as we like to think otherwise, a lot of the people tuned in for the carnage.
Oh yeah. Of course they did. People used to go line the streets for public hangings. People, filled the Colosseum. I'm afraid.
I love boxing. I love boxing. I love when people get knocked the fuck out. Like, this is human nature. It's human nature.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
We'll have to get that blogger versus Cahill match on, won't we?
Oh man, sign me up. I swear to God. I Jesus Christ. I have dreams about that. The guy is in my head rent-free all day, every day. It's terrible. I need therapy.
I bet you saw that video and saying, I thought you were saying, drop it.
Drop the whole thing, yeah. From a great height. Yeah, I need therapy. Somebody needs to come and help me. Right. The Jockey Club, financially, things are not great at TC. Can you just briefly tell us what's going on here? They're selling off rights to races. There's I know we flagged before, financially that they're not in a decent position here, but how bad is it, I wonder? Like people are kind of putting 2 and 2 together here and seeing these little cracks and saying, oh my God, this could be pretty bad actually.
Yeah. Well, it started early in the year when they gave back 5 Premier fixtures. They gave them back because obviously the idea of Premier fixture is you put in more prize money for Saturdays on the showcase days, and they actually gave back 5 of their fixtures. So that was a red flag. And last week they actually sold one of their ITV fixtures, a group race fixture from Newmarket. They sold that to York, and York said they're going to put on 275 grand's worth of prize money on that day. And presumably that prize money that Newmarket and the Jockey Club didn't have. Some of the kind of like conversations you're having, just like took some notes on this. Yeah, I mean, even last week they was saying when they sold the fixture, very, very significant financial headwinds, and people were just like putting 2 and 2 together and just saying, they're already selling Sandown fixtures at free meetings in 2025 for a tenner if you get in early. So people just saying, they want money in. I mean, they're not going to get a lot of money from that, but it's just indicative of how money minded they are. And I was going to make a big thing about John Pulling as being made to do Cheltenham and Aintree this year. But then I just found out that I thought that might have been a cost saving exercise as well. But it just sounds like Sir Luca Varma, the current Aintree clerk of the course, has had some planned leave for a while. So they just drafted him in there. I just thought they might be combining the 2 jobs, but I was misplaced there. But it just seems like the Jockey Club are in big financial problems.
Yeah, it does. And Harry, language is a big thing. I know in your profession, like you read the language and you listen to what's being said, and you cannot but deduce that there's serious problems here.
It certainly seems to be very worrying, as it does seem to be across the sport. Going back to our earlier question of taxation and stuff, it probably doesn't. I think I agree with AK that one policy is not going to fix this. It probably requires redraw. The funding of racing probably requires restarting from scratch. Really,
AK touched upon the sponsorship angle. Where would the sport be without Betfred sponsoring all the classic flat.
I was going to say the same. Like, I don't know if I said it last week on the podcast, but you almost like there's some sponsorships I look at, and you're like, Boyle Sports do the Irish Grey and Derby. You're like, if they weren't an independent bookmaker, nobody would touch it. It must be the biggest cash burn ever. English Grey and Derby, you have Star Sports. It's the same thing. You need independent bookmakers to not be able to stand over decisions and just go with whatever they think. I think, like, if you put these before any kind of company that wants a return on their investment, good luck. Like, you almost need the independent champion just doing this as a loss leader, essentially.
As Stu found out, I mean, the actual financial case for any sponsorship, let alone racing sponsorship, is quite fragile, isn't it?
It's I probably shouldn't say.
Well, I think we're talking to a man.
Come on, negative Natty. Let's go.
Who's sitting on the sofa with his brand tattooed across his chest.
Yeah.
So
available for sponsorship.
It's I don't know. It's probably worth more if you own a local wood manufacturer and you want to get the 10 lads out and sponsor a race. Like, I think is probably the way you put it. I don't know what you get out of sponsoring classics anymore. Who's tuning into the St. Ledger for the sponsorship angle of it? Like, for what it's costing, it's absolutely unbelievable, the cost to benefit ratio, I'd imagine.
Well, you're guaranteed half an hour build up with ITV, AK, so that's attractive. Come hell or high water, if it was World War III and a nuclear bomb was dropped, they would not break away from the ledger for any reason.
That is true.
Interesting, some finance talk. Last week we had the budget here delivered by the Irish government, and we have so much money in Ireland at the moment that they're just throwing it out willy-nilly to anyone who needs it, and mostly those who don't need it, in the hopes of getting re-elected. But one of the interesting parts of the budget allocation was a 4.3 increase in state funding for horse racing across the board. A lot of people are unhappy about this. There was a letter into the Irish Times last week along the lines of, our government has seen fit to reward greyhound and horse racing for their appalling animal rights and welfare record over the last kind of couple of years. So not everyone's happy about this, and particularly other sports as well that don't get the same allocation. But it's interesting, TC, you know, we have an unusual approach here. It's the Department of Agriculture, really, and the HRI does a very good job of selling itself and representing itself as a huge employer in this country, and that the returns across the country from stables and yards and staff are more than worth the investment that the Irish government puts in. But not everybody sees it like that, and it's an interesting kind of to and fro at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not something I'm close to, obviously, but it just sounds like a lot of people were very surprised that both racing and greyhounds got a lot more increase than many expected. I mean, obviously, racing is not in a great place perception-wise over in Ireland, isn't it? They've had a few kind of like knockbacks. And but it just shows you that Shark Hanlon episode hasn't sullied them too much. Free the Shark one. Come on, when's his appeal coming up?
But yeah, when is it? Is it? Do we know when his appeal is?
Is it December? I'm not
sure. Remember.
Well, yeah.
Sure, but, yeah, I mean,
the ban kicks in December anyway, so the appeal would have to be before that. So. Yeah. The ban kicks in December, but yeah, look, let's see. He doesn't seem too confident. I wonder if he's downplaying it, just maybe publicly. But Harry, you stand by. He'd have to have a very good shot here if he gets his ducks in a row legally and fires both barrels.
Look, these, you know, you're not in courts in sports disciplinary tribunals. They are much more of a lottery. And when you're dealing with welfare, there's always a heavy weight attached to proceedings and quite a lot of pressure on panels to be seen to be quite harsh.
Did anybody else lose Harry there, or was it just
no, just you?
Keep
all right, carry on. That was at 10:02, by the way. If we're taking
all right. No, you can leave it in. You sound stupid. Anything to make you sound stupid. We're all for that.
I just had a message coming up, something about unstable. That's probably about my mentality.
Yeah. Just on the government as well here, and while we're at it, lads, I know that this ban on proposed gambling across television stations in Ireland from early in the morning until 9:30 at night looks like it's kind of getting closer to fruition here. I know at the races, or Sky Sports Racing TC are already making plans to simulcast here without the gambling advertising, so that racing can continue on that station in Ireland here. I wonder how much of a hassle that is for them, or whether or not long term it'll be worth it. But certainly that seems what they are planning to do.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, isn't it? There's a date. There's a guy called James Brown who's pushing this through, and it just sounds like it got through the latest stage last week comfortably. I think it's a vote of 17-5 got this bill through to the next stage. If it comes through, we're looking at a daytime advertising betting ban from 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. And obviously, if that's the case, then the TV companies, Sky Sports Racing and Racing TV, are going to have to kind of like adjust accordingly. Now, Sky Sports Racing seem to have put something in place to address that, but Racing TV reckons it's unviable. So we haven't heard anything from them. And I think the next stage of this, the bill going through, is tomorrow on Tuesday. So presumably Racing TV have got something in place. They're not just going to pull the plug, because obviously they cover Irish racing.
There's a huge investment here. Yeah.
What's the situation with RTE? Obviously you're one of the lead presenters there. I mean, does betting not really play a role in the sponsorship of that? Because
Ball Sports have been sponsoring RTE's coverage for the last few years. But I know, like, you know, it's a concern now that obviously with this proposed legislation coming in, that they're going to have to look elsewhere, and that might not be able to continue. But if you're going to go looking for, you talked about AK, you know, sponsoring races and what you get back from that. If you're going to go looking for sponsorship of horse racing outside of gambling companies, I mean, whatever Bull Sports are paying, and I'm not privy to that information, whoever else comes in, if there's no gambling, it's going to be rock bottom. Like, it's literally bargain basement offered here. Yeah. We're going to give you this, and that's it.
And that's why I say, like, we all have our favorite bookmakers and our least favorite bookmakers, but independent bookmakers sometimes can make decisions that probably might not be optimal economically. For example, I'm Dublin. Our company is based in Dublin. We don't advertise in Ireland. We don't do any advertising that's linked to taxation, just on the bets we lay, essentially the turnover tax. Yeah, I don't know. It's worrying. It should be very worrying for the sport. Like, the sport in Ireland is probably slightly lucky that money seems to be pumped in, and we're talking about those numbers, that Deloitte report that kind of stands over everything that's been done. I don't know. I wouldn't imagine. I think there's plenty of window dressing in that report, and it's getting the job done and getting more funding. But it's the, you know, Debbie Downer AK here. I think there'll be a tipping point at some point, and I don't know what will be left after it.
RTE Racing with Mattress Mick. What do you think? Do you like the ring of that? That's an Irish thing. There's a guy here who advertises called Mattress Mick, and he literally sells mattresses. He's an absolute head case. But the mattresses are great. I recommend it. Right. AK, have you ever met Denise Coats? You two being big, high-flying wigs, head of big, massive corporations. Do you and Denise go out for dinner and discuss the state of the gambling industry? At 365?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're best pals. We're good friends. No,
have you ever met her? Actually, no, really. No. Have you met her? No?
Not in person. Probably on paper somewhere. But no, I haven't met her. I'm afraid. No, I'd say a lot of respect, actually, just for probably for what she's done in general. Product offering, they're very, very good. They do a lot of stuff that I think is just off the charts good. So it's I have a love-hate relationship, should we say?
Yeah, well, look, this goes back to if anyone didn't read this, there was a huge feature article on write-up on Denise Coats. Denise Coats in the Guardian last week. I mean, it went into huge depth on her career, her background, her family, what she's done for the gambling industry, how she built Bet365, her association with Stoke Football Club. Harry, I thought it was an interesting read, quite complimentary for a lot of it. Then it was kind of juxtaposed by some of these problem gambling issues that were almost like inserted into the article to give it a sense of balance, which I didn't think really fit. But what was your sense of the piece overall?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty fair, balanced piece of piece of reporting. It wasn't a hatchet job, which you might expect it to have been in the current climate, and particularly, frankly, in the Guardian. But I agree with AK. You know,
Bettors.
in the well, no, look, anywhere, frankly, at the moment, it's very hard to get anything that once momentum starts to move behind a story, it's very difficult to stop it. And the momentum at the moment is anti gambling generally. I thought, yeah, pretty balanced. There wasn't anything in there that most of us who sort of know a bit about her background perhaps didn't already know, but that it educated a lot more people. Her origin story is extraordinary, and her vision was amazing, matched only by her ability to not ever have been met by anyone I've ever met. I don't know anyone who has met Denise Coats. I don't think. It is, and lots of people have tried. Lots
like
of
Enya.
people. Just like Enya. Yeah, very similar. Maybe actually that's where they are. If you find Enya, you'll find Denise Coats.
Yeah, they're living together in the house in the castle over in Killarney there, betting and singing away together. Oh my God, the thoughts in my head. The dinner parties are outrageous. Go on, yeah.
You should mention it was a piece by Rob Davies, who's not everyone in betting's favourite. I thought it was a fascinating read. I didn't know about the backstory and how they started. And
did you not?
Just an absolutely phenomenal success story, isn't it? The first article was balanced, and Rob, he followed up with I thought was a pretty lame one about the downside of a numerous charity kind of like donation. So he did balance it up with a bit of a more of a attempted hatchet job. But yeah, I mean, it's just a absolutely phenomenal success story, isn't it? I mean, they operate on the fine lines, don't they? But God, they're it's. I think one of the successes. I mean, I was thinking about this. Would you be able to, can you name a company, whatever you want, in the current responsible gambling climate? Would you be allowed to name a company Bet365 now, or can you just do what you want?
You can. I'd say you could, to be honest with you. I don't know. I really know more about that.
I don't know how. Yeah.
There's a company up over here called Tony Bet, and it's Tony Cascarino saying, "Come on, have a Tony Bet." Everybody, I mean, Tony Bet.
Yeah. It is a really interesting question, which is, are we going to get to the point? I think I mentioned it like the other day, where cigarette packaging is going to be the approach to marketing, which is it's there, but you've essentially got to call your new betting company "Don't Bet with Us." Bets. We could be going in that direction.
Yeah, well, anyway, I thought it was good. It was a good piece. And as you said, a balanced piece by the pronouns in the bio paper of interest, that is The Guardian. Right, we know the McCoys are out, gentlemen. The McCoys are out, but the Leicesters are back in. AK, can we have our Christmas night out at the Leicester Awards this year?
They all roll into one for me, Hugh. I don't even know which one's which or what's going on. Like, it's they don't...
The Leicesters is the jockeys.
Yeah, so Harry, what are the Leicesters for people? We know the McCoys are gone because the Jockey Club have no money, but the Leicesters have found sponsorship. They're having a big night.
Yeah. It looks good fun. They've got Newbury for the night on the when is it? 22nd of December 24. It's the first time they've done it in front of people since 2018. I looked up at the website. They had a bucking Bronco last year. It looked quite good fun. Black tie events aren't for everyone. AK hasn't managed yet to find a black tie version of his AK Bets fleece, and until he's done so, he refuses to leave the house. No, it looks good fun, and it's pretty amazing in many ways. It's not particularly cheap. None of these things are £200 inclusive of that. A ticket, but it is one of the selling points of the sport is that you can go along to these things. I don't think they'd have us at the Ballon d'Or Awards if we tried to get in there. Well, they might let you in, Hugh, but the rest of us, I think, would struggle.
They definitely wouldn't.
So anyway, yeah, that's a little plug for that. It looks good fun. You can see James Doyle on the bucking Bronco. It'll be good fun.
Yeah,
positive Whirlpool story alert. They're sponsored.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the themes of the night is they're going to have 10 jockeys lined up against the wall, and they're going to ask Kia Drabshin to pick the best one. And if we finish before New Year's Day, we'll be doing well.
It's the only day of the year where jockeys drink. So That's why they picked the December the 22nd, because there's no racing the next
Lovely.
day.
No,
200 quid. I bet they drink about 400 quid if it's an all inclusive job, aren't they?
no drink or drug test the next day, boys. Go for your life. And briefly, TC, the last one before we go to questions. Then, can you just explain the new proposed commercial agreements for the race courses and the Thoroughbred Group? They according to the Thoroughbred Group, should be wholly supported and acclaimed, and this is a good deal here. Can you just briefly tell us what it's about?
Yeah, I'll put my glasses on and read my notes because it's quite lengthy. Yeah. Anyway, it's good to see Jack. Someone from the Thoroughbred Group called Jack Connor emailed me last Monday, I think it was, and say, could you cover this? So happy to do so, Jack. Basically, the Thoroughbred Group proposal, they presented to the RCA and BHA last week. They're proposing a gold, silver and bronze accreditation scheme to the courses, and the higher up that level, the more kind of like increased likelihood is you're going to get some of the BHA's accredited fixtures and the ones that come up for sale. So if you're a gold, presumably you get first crack at new fixtures and alike, and it's quite similar to the Peter Savile's PRA scheme, the kite mark scheme. Presumably Peter Savile, predictably even Peter Savile's come out and said this idea is meaningless, and it just, the Thoroughbred Group are just up against Savile's PRA group, and it's just another example of one set of people, i.e. trainers, at loggerheads with each other, because Savile claims he's got 150 trainers signed up, and presumably all the others are with the Thoroughbred Group. So Julian Watson and Peter Savile are probably having a right tear up behind the scenes.
It's really hard to see how that is helpful to get a gang of half the trainers together. You've already got a trainers representative body. The ability of the sport to divide itself up and up and up. We've said it before. The People's Front of Judea is extraordinary.
Yeah,
I don't know where Savile gets this kind of like kudos from, because when he was the BHB chairman, he wasn't a resounding success.
No,
and that was over 20 years ago. And he's suddenly just coming. I know he owns Plumpton, but he suddenly got a self-indulgent hold on a part of the industry, and he's just causing mayhem. I mean, it's like if there were two sets of bodies representing trainers, and this is a sport that's trying to unite, and even one subsection are actually kind of like at each other's throats. And and Savile, for example, is backed by the Arkwin trainer Beckett. By the way, I did a 101. I did a 101 loser in the intro there. You calling him Rafe?
Yeah, well, I realised, you know what? I mean, it was stupid and childish of me to not call him by his actual name. I know I was kind of taking a piss.
Now he's an art-winning trainer. You probably thought you might.
Yeah,
starting to brown nose now because you want to.
Listen, guys. Everybody learns from their mistakes, and I would like to formally apologise to Rafe Beckett for calling him by the other name that we use in this country of the same spelling. Right? That's all I would like to say. Okay, and I won't do it again.
Anyway, it just seems like absolute madness, and it's kind of like racing's problem in a microcosm, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Questions. We have four today to finish the show, guys. And Ben Keith wants to know, Harry, you can take this. Does Harry think the legal changes re-betting underway in the Middle East, would it ever be possible to bet on course out there?
I don't know is the answer. I mean, it's very early days in betting. I got wind of this last summer. Funny enough, they were going to allow it. They are very sensitive to exactly who is going to be allowed to bet in that part of the world. And I suspect that it will be some time before we see Star Sports Dubai on the race tracks. But look, no one really expected this betting to come in a hurry. So who knows? But I think that it will be something of a stretch.
Okay. All right.
Let's get gambling. Is that what it is?
Keith Watson wants to know, what do trainers get from the bookmaker sponsorship? Surely this practice is corrupt. Corrupt. Well, I don't think you can, I can see how the association might be a little bit grey and muddy, all right. But what do trainers get from sponsorships? I don't know.
Well, it's the same as football, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some trainers get 6 figures. That's why the trainers do it. And a lot of trainers, for example, Paul Nichols with Betfair, he plays ball big style. He'll do various kind of like lunches. He'll do filming days. Content is very open. Nichols is probably he's probably the extreme example because he is a complete open book. He hasn't got many punters in the yard, so he actually says it as it is. And the owners pretty much back him on that front. So basically, the trainers do it for money and big money in some instances, as do the jockeys. Jockeys get 6 figures as well. The high end ones do, and the bookmakers think they can make it work through content. I mean, if you sponsored a race, if you chucked 100 grand, for example, at a sponsorship of a race, that's over in you get a short lead up, and that's over in 5 minutes. That nobody will probably remember who sponsored the Guineas or Ledger, a couple of years ago. But at least you get, for example, Nichols, he'll get it through from October all the way through to April. Even if you're paying him 100 grand plus, you're getting quite a lot of bang for your buck there, and you've got it all over a season.
I still can't remember who I was calling it. The Ladbrokes Ledger there for about an hour on our last show.
I think the Ladbrokes stopped doing that about 10 years ago.
There you go. There you go. That'll tell you exactly how up to date I am. Here's an idea for you, AK. Go and sponsor Shark Handling there. Massive windfall, public perception. You get a huge amount of kudos. You're helping a guy in his time of need. You get great content. Marketing idea.
Just on that, has he got a lot of support in Ireland?
No. He does. He's massive.
Oh, sorry, support, do you mean from the public?
Yes.
Or in terms of horses? No, from the public, absolutely.
From the public, I wouldn't have heard anybody against him. It's literally everybody, essentially.
Sorry, I thought you meant horses in training. I thought you meant, but yeah, from the public, he has huge support. Huge support.
Yeah. Actually, you hit upon something there. Go and sponsor his Shark Yard, okay?
Yeah, I'm telling you. And
I think someone beat us to it. I think that was half the problem. There was with the trailer, I'd say. But yeah.
Okay.
I like Shark. I've met him a few times at the track, and he's grand. As we've seen, as I put up last week, I think the Irish field, somebody sent him a letter. A kid sent him a letter. And he's not only sent something back in the post, he's picked up the phone and rang the kid and invited the kid over. I think, listen, might be unpolished, but I like people like that.
That's what this podcast is. Apart from Harry,
essentially.
Right. Don't say no to somebody who makes Chewbacca look like a little schoolboy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Rusty says, why do certain tipsters... I think this is for you, TC. Why do certain tipsters trumpet winners on social media that they didn't actually tip just because they mentioned the winning horse in their tipping article? This goes back to the weekend just gone, where you gave a really favourable mention to a horse that won at a ridiculous price. And somebody has a problem with that, apparently.
No, it's kind of like, I know where he's coming from. And it was tongue-in-cheek. I mean, basically, there was a horse called Candy, who I backed, but we're not even going to go there because I'll get massive pylons from that. It was 50s and 40s when I wrote the column. I gave a very favourable mention, bottled out of tipping it. He's correct there. And it won at 18s, well backed. So I went on social media afterwards, very tongue-in-cheek, saying, hope some of you follow the lukewarm advice. So it was hardly a trumpet, was it? And took the 40s candid. And a lot of people got back to me publicly and privately saying, yes, they did. But the idea of the column is to write extensively on each race, ITV race, give all the stats and information, and let people make their own zone. If I tipped every single horse that I backed myself, I'd have responsible gambling up my arse every single day of the week. So that's the idea about it. It was tongue-in-cheek. I should have used an emoji, but I don't use emojis because they're for juveniles. I use my ... which is a indicator of I'm not being entirely serious. And a few people kind of like unnamed, should I say? But yeah, I was inclined to just give them a rocket privately, but I'm dealing with it here. I've got no problem with what I do. In fact, the Saturday column was the biggest read we've had so far. So thanks for reading. And like I said, I give all the stats and info. So people make their own mind up. As when I spoke to Anthony before we did this, we both agreed that the way I do things is probably the right way, and there has to be an onus on the individual to actually make their own minds up, and you just have to give them an extensive argument, pro and con, and give them all the stats and information and go from there. So if anybody wants to take it, then
no, I think I've said it before in here as well, just on a serious point, like extensive writing, various angles mentioned, and the idea at the end is you make your own mind up as the customer.
And just can I just read you the paragraph, AK, here, right? Just to read it out. If you can get the 40s candy 5 places, then I think you're on a very fair bet. The 50s went overnight. 40s is available in 4 places. Like, and then, you know, another, I know he's only rated 85 and has to give £3 away, but I was very taken by his win in the Air Nursery last time. The penny looks to have finally dropped. I mean, like, take from that what you will. If you're too stupid.
Yeah. And we try, and it works the other way as well. It works for us as well as the bookmaker. We said to Tony might be saying, alluding to putting up a certain horse, and do you want to match it? And there'll be certain cases where we either we want to go top price, or we take a different opinion, or there might be certain cases where we're like, no, absolutely not. We think that price is too big. And Tony has the freedom to. Yeah. No one else does this, but has the freedom to mention where the prices are elsewhere as well. We're trying to give it honestly, and you do what you want with it. And if you want to send comments behind an egg profile on Twitter, that's up to you as well. But we're happy with the way we do it, and thanks for reading, because it's going through the roof.
Yeah, I don't like this self-justification lot, because I don't think I need to. But I mean, what we do, I give a thorough kind of overview of the market and what's available elsewhere. What Anthony does, their firm bets to traditional each way odds, which I mentioned. It's just a very, very honest appraisal. And even stuff like, people have come back to me and said, well, don't tip at enhanced place terms because they're not great. I can't get on. A classic example is Aventura on the Arc. I mean, it was 22s, including with Anthony, got back into 70 to 2, and it was second. And I actually tipped it win only, but I just said, look, if you can back it each way at enhanced place terms, still do. So it's kind of like, I'm trying to be fair. But some people just, like I said, I've got no problem with criticism. In fact, I quite like it. But it's, you know.
But how somebody can take, hope you took the lukewarm advice, which is exactly what it was. It was probably a bit more than that. You're understanding
that was a piss take at myself. But it's not, it's hardly a boom.
Some people need to just go and boil their heads. Right, last question. Chris Fawcett. Why do some betting operators offer early prices on dog racing? I thought pricing 2-year-old maidens for horse racing the night before was crazy, but this is even more nuts. Can only lead to one thing: account restrictions and angry punters. And you've had a couple of those, eh, Kai?
Oh, we had one, but I think it was kind of, I think it was slightly overblown as well, maybe. But yeah, like I'll give you some history on it. I've obviously worked in the industry since 2008. All the way through that time, if you would have spoken to any betting shop, independent betting shop, you couldn't get bets on at Crayford and certain tracks that might have been Hall Green, different tracks you couldn't get bets on when the first show came in. And that was because essentially the prices on the first show previously would have been so incorrect, and you would have had people lined up all around the place betting dogs at 4 to 1 that in 2 seconds are going to be 7 to 4. What bookmakers then did, and it's worked out really well for bookmakers from a pricing accuracy point of view, is put up you see people on Twitter the whole time, I'm the best greyhound person ever, I can absolutely destroy greyhound racing. What happened, the whole ecosystem evolved because of those first show gambles on basically whether they were done on purpose or not. I have my own opinions on that, but incorrect prices being put up at certain tracks for the first show, so nobody would take bets. It evolved into bookmakers putting up every single race, but also not being willing to take any kind of bet on them, because, as in all walks of life, people give the game away. If you're lining something up for a first show punt, if the price is up at 8 a.m, so now you get the case of, oh, this bookmaker was 10 to 1, and look at it, in 2 seconds later it's 2 to 1. Well, the bookmaker it really helps the bookmaker because they're not laying for a one. You might only think it's not that important, but for a 1 minute period at the start of the show price previously, you'd get absolutely filled in on these ricks by people that were basically orchestrating this kind of stuff. So now it's that bookmakers have quite shrewdly put up prices that people still can't resist nipping at for buttons. But it also is corrected that for sure exposure. That's the way the industry has evolved. The instance with us in the week was probably a better class race at Romford, where we've offered a customer 100 quid. The customer's asked for 200 quid at 7 to 1, I think. And we've offered the customer 100 quid at 7 to 1. A customer who has publicly admitted that he's winning a couple of thousand or a few thousand off us in his original post. And he's been offered 100 quid at 7 to 1 and 100 quid at 5 to 1. Now that equates to either 100 quid at 7s or 200 quid at 6s. It's a fair bet on an early price ground for somebody who's self-confessed winning a few thousand quid off you. So I'm really struggling to from a tech point of view. When we make that offer to the customer, it doesn't allow the customer to accept the first bet and reject the second bet. That's a tech constraint that we have. So what we do is we assume a bet's been laid. The price is cut then based on what the second reoffer is. Then the trader will manually look at the account, see if the bet was placed. In this instance, it wasn't. There can be various reasons for that. A, the customer doesn't want a bet. B, it's timed out. He's missed the reoffer. Anything like that. So we look if the bet's been laid, and then if it hasn't, push the price back out. And that's what we do in this instance. So, and the knowledge you then have at that point of view, the customer should then have the knowledge that these lads will lay me 100 quid at 7, so I'll now just ask for 100 quid at 7s. That's what we expect to happen. In this case, it didn't. Customer has lost his mind, grand, and no objection to that. So I was just defending us from that point of view. And I say this all the time, right? We lay, listen, we're not Flutter, we're not N10, but we're laying a lot of bets every single day. Despite my best efforts, we do not get everything right. In this instance, I'm really happy that we have. To be honest with you, I think we've probably offered too much in the original offer anyway. And we've been kicked in the stones for it. So it's quite, it's not disheartening, but it's just the way it is.
You've explained your position perfectly there. Thanks to everybody who took the time to ask the questions and to the guys. Myself and AK have booked ourselves in for a haircut with Harry's barber. TC, you can sit that one out for the time being unless you're planning a whole lifestyle change. Thanks for listening. Please download the AK Bets app for all the latest sports and offers, including early greyhound prices. And we're all off to make sure that beautiful Prix de l'Arc trophy is exactly safe and secure where I left it. Up, bloggers, you know what. Until next week, folks. Good luck.